Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi yessir wa la tu'assir. Rabbi tammim bil khair.
O Allah, make it easy and do not make it difficult, and make it end well. Hello everyone, welcome to the second class of our Learning Tajweed program. In this class, we will learn the rule, Idghaam bila Ghunnah. We will work on it together, inshallah. What is Idghaam bila Ghunnah? You won't need to remember this. It translates to merging without Ghunnah, meaning reciting with shadda without any nasal sound. But keep this in mind, you won't need to remember this either, but there's just one important thing, which is our main rule. After tanween or nun sakin, there's always a tajweed rule. This is our main rule. You should definitely write it down, my friends. In our first rule, we have the letters
Elif, ha, hı, ayın, gayın,
and ha. There are 28 letters in the Quran. After tanween or nun sakin, there is always a tajweed rule. When it comes to those 28 letters, what did we do in the first rule? Sent away 6 letters. Now then, my friends, in our second rule and second class, we have 2 letters,
lam, ra.
meaning we take 6 from here, 2 from there, and we have 20 letters left. What happens if the letters lam and ra comes after tanween and nun sakin? The second rule happens. What do we do in the second rule? Let's see together. So if the letters lam and ra comes after tanween and nun sakin, idgham bila ghunnah happens. As we're reading the Quran, reading, let's say there is a letter here. Which letter?
The letter te.
It's
The letter te.
then you see that there is tanween. Or as you're reciting the Quran, you see there is a nun sakin there. And what is always after that? A tajweed rule.
Lam, ra comes here. Ra
Comes here. What happens? The second rule happens. Meaning, idgham bila ghunnah. And what happens if idgham bila ghunnah happens? Like, what do? We'll study it together, inshallah. This lesson is very easy, my friends, and we'll learn it very easily.
and ra.
How do we pronounce this?
And
We read it as ra. Number 1, remove the letter nun. Number 2, give it a shadda. So how will it go? Remember how we said an, ra? We remove the letter nun, meaning n. We also give it a shadda, then pronounce it as ra. I'll show it again, to prevent any confusion. We'll understand it better with one more example, inshallah. We normally, on the text in the Quran Karim, on the text, we see it like this, my friends. But in reading, if ra comes after tanween and nun sakin, remove nun, remove nun, remove nun. Give it a shadda. Now I'm removing nun, giving it a shadda. You'll never see it like this. You'll see it like this. You're reading, then you see a nun sakin has arrived. Remove the first nun, remove the second nun, give it a shadda. My friends, we read this as
ra.
you're reading the Quran and you see a nun sakin. If there's nun sakin, then the next letter always follows. A tajweed rule. All right, which letter comes after it? Lam or ra comes. You'll instantly remember. What happens if lam or ra comes? The second rule happens. What do we do in the second rule? Number 1, remove nun. Number 2, give it a shadda, as we can see in the example.
And ra.
But from now on, we'll read it as
Ra.
inshallah. Let's give an example for lam this time. Let's imagine that instead of ra, let's imagine that the letter lam appears. Friends, let's imagine there is a lam. How do we normally read this?
And lesh.
Right? What was our practical thing to do here? Remove the nun, the n letter. Give shadda. Meaning? We read it as,
elleş.
before we learned this, we would read this as,
Enleş.
what do we do now? We read this as,
Elleş.
let's look at our examples. In Surah Al-Ikhlas,
Velem yekün.
top there's a nun sakin. After nun sakin, there is always a tajweed rule. Which letter is it? The letter lam. And which rule is that? Let me remember. The second rule. And what happens in the second rule? Remove nun. Give shadda. Before we learned this, we would read it as walam yakun lahu.
Kün.
What am I doing? I remove the letter n. Give shadda.
Velem yekün lehu. Kün lehu.
And continue with
Küfüven ehad. Velem yekün lehu.
kullahu. See, I don't pronounce the n at all. I completely remove the n. Kullahu, I continue by giving a shadda. Let's look at the second example. And this new example is from Surah Yasin. We'd normally say min rabbihim.
Min Rabbihim.
We'd say not anymore. Why? Because now we know the second rule. We now read it with tajweed. What do? We remove the n. Give shadda.
Mir Rabbihim.
We'll read it as.
Mir Rabbihim.
Let's give example from tanween 2. From Suratul Humaza, friends. As we're reading the Quran, we see tanween. Double dhamma, double fatha, double kasra, doesn't matter. Is there a tanween? Then there's a tajweed rule. Tanween is here as double kasra. What came after the double kasra? The letter lam. When the letter lam comes, what did we say? After tanween, there's always a tajweed rule. Because lam is there, the second rule happens. What do we do in the second rule? Number 1, remove nun. Number 2, give shadda. I'll show it like this. See how it says,
Hümezetin. Lü.
I remove the n. I read it as,
Hümezetil lümeze.
not as humazatin. Before we learned this, we thought it was humazatin. But no, now we know tajweed.
Hümezetil lümeze.
There are examples of this in Suratul Qari'ah and other chapters in the Quran. To summarize this lesson, our main rule, after tanween or nun sakin, there is always a tajweed rule. If lam and ra comes after tanween or nun sakin,
İdgam bila gunnu.
happens. You don't need to focus on idgham bila ghunnah. The second rule happens. And what happens in the second rule? Remove nun, give shadda.
Ve ahiru davana enilhamdülillahi rabbil alemin.